Your paycheck just landed. The notification buzzes. For the next few hours, you have more control over your future than you will have again this month. Then it starts to disappear. Rent. A subscription you forgot you signed up for. Dinner you didn't plan to buy. By the time you check your account next week, most of it is already gone. But the problem isn't how much you earn. It's not your job, your rent, or your bad luck. The problem is what you do or don't do in the first hour after that money hits your account. Because most people treat payday like a finish line. The money arrived. The stress is over. Time to relax. But financially, payday isn't the finish line. It's the starting gun. And most people don't even hear it go off. Here's what changes once you understand that. Here's the simplest version of the fix. Not a spreadsheet. Not a 40-hour course on investing. Just one rule. The first $100 of every paycheck gets moved before you check your phone for anything else. Not spent. Not decided on the spot, based on however you happen to feel that day. Moved, automatically, into something that isn't checking. It sounds too small to matter. That's exactly why it works. In the early 2000s, behavioral economist Richard Thaler and his colleague Shlomo Benartzi ran an experiment inside a company's retirement plan. Employees weren't saving enough. Not because they didn't want to, because every payday, saving competed against a dozen other decisions, and saving usually lost. So Thaler and Benartzi designed a program called Save More Tomorrow. Employees agreed, in advance, to have a small slice of every future raise automatically diverted into savings, before they ever saw it sitting in their checking account. No decision required at each payday, no willpower needed in the moment. Just one choice, made once, that quietly removed all the future choices. The results were staggering. Average savings rates among participants nearly quadrupled within a few years. Some groups went from saving around 3.5% of their income to close to 14%. Nothing about their salaries changed. Only the order of operations changed. The money was directed before it ever became spendable in their minds. That distinction, money that feels spendable versus money that's already spoken for, is what psychologists call mental accounting, a term coined by Thaler himself. Your brain doesn't treat every dollar the same way. A dollar sitting in your checking account, unlabeled, feels available. A dollar that's already been moved somewhere else, savings, investing, a bill, feels gone, even though technically you could still touch it. Once money gets labeled, you stop negotiating with yourself over it every single day. This isn't a new discovery. It's closer to 100 years old. In 1926, George Clason published a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, built around one instruction that people still quote today: pay yourself first. Before rent, before groceries, before anything else. Set aside a portion of what you earn and treat it as a bill you owe yourself. Not a maybe. Not whatever happens to be left over on the 28th. A fixed line item, paid the moment the money arrives. Exactly like the electric company gets paid. Almost a century later, the Federal Reserve's own research explains why this still matters so much. In its annual survey of household economics and decision-making, the Fed has repeatedly found that a large share of American adults, often around 1 in 3, say they couldn't cover a sudden $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. Not because the money never existed, because by the time the emergency showed up, the money had already been spent on things that felt urgent in the moment but weren't. There's a second piece of psychology working against you here, one that Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying: present bias. The well-documented tendency to overvalue a reward available right now, compared to a bigger reward available later, even when the math clearly favors waiting. A dinner tonight feels real. A retirement account 30 years away feels theoretical. Present bias is why "I'll start saving next paycheck" almost never actually arrives. There's always another next paycheck. So let's walk through what actually happens to two people who earn the exact same salary. Person 1 gets paid on Friday. They don't open their banking app until Saturday afternoon while deciding whether to order takeout. The balance looks big enough, so they order it. A friend texts about plans for Saturday night, and the balance still looks big enough, so they say yes. By Sunday, without a single obviously bad decision, just a string of individually reasonable ones, a meaningful chunk of that paycheck is already gone. Nothing was saved. Nothing was invested. Nothing extra went toward debt. Person 2 gets paid on that same Friday. Before checking social media, before deciding what's for dinner, they open one app and move exactly $100 in 3 directions automatically in under a minute. $40 into an emergency fund. $40 into an index fund, a single investment made up of hundreds of companies bundled together. So one company's bad year can't wipe them out. $20 toward paying down a piece of debt, faster than the minimum payment requires. Whatever's left, they spend freely and without guilt, because the decisions that actually matter are already made. It's not a large number. That's the point. $100 doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels small enough to ignore, which is exactly why most people never bother protecting it, and exactly why moving it automatically works. Over a year, that's $600 redirected before you ever had the chance to spend it $2 at a time on things you won't remember by next month. Left to compound over a decade, that habit alone can end up worth tens of thousands more than the same money, spent quietly, one paycheck at a time, same income, same paycheck, completely different month, and eventually, a completely different decade. Here's the counterintuitive part most people miss. Person 2 didn't need more discipline than Person 1. They needed fewer decisions. Discipline behaves like a battery. It drains every time you use it, which is why the same person who resists an impulse purchase in the morning caves to one by evening. Automating the split the moment your paycheck lands means you spend willpower once, setting it up instead of 50 separate times, every time temptation shows up over the following 2 weeks. You don't fix your money by trying harder in the moment you're tempted. You fix it by removing the moment entirely. So what does the actual order look like? First, a small emergency buffer, even $500 to start. So, one flat tire or one cracked phone screen doesn't push you onto a credit card. Second, any debt charging double-digit interest, paid down faster than required, because no investment reliably and consistently beats a 20% credit card rate. Third, long-term investing, ideally automated the same day your paycheck lands, so the money is working before you're even tempted to touch it. Fourth, and only after those 3, discretionary spending, the dinners, the subscriptions, the things you actually want. Notice what's missing from that list. Checking your balance first, and deciding based on how you feel. Feelings are one of the least reliable inputs in personal finance, because they're shaped by what happened 5 minutes ago, not by what you'll need 5 years from now. If your paycheck is small, or your bills are tight this month, the number doesn't have to be $100. It could be 20. It could be 10. The order matters more than the size. Get the sequence right on a small amount now, and raising the amount later, the way Thaler's participants did with each future raise, becomes almost automatic. Get the sequence wrong on a large amount, and no raise will ever feel like enough. This is exactly where your current payday routine is either quietly working for you or quietly working against you. Right now, for most people, payday triggers a phone notification. The notification triggers opening the banking app. Opening the app triggers a decision about spending. All within the first few minutes, all before a single dollar has been protected. The entire modern system, built on instant notifications and one-tap spending, is accidentally designed to put temptation first and intention last. Flip that order, and the exact same paycheck behaves completely differently. Not because the number on it changed, because the sequence changed. Thomas Stanley, who spent years studying America's actual millionaires for his book, The Millionaire Next Door, found something people rarely expect. Most of them didn't get wealthy from high incomes or lucky windfalls. They got there by consistently directing a fixed share of ordinary paychecks toward building assets, year after year, before lifestyle spending ever got first pick. The habit, repeated on autopilot, mattered more than the size of any single paycheck. You don't need to earn more to feel like you're finally getting ahead. You need the first movement of every paycheck to happen automatically. Before your feelings get a vote, your paycheck just landed. The notification buzzes. This time, before you open anything else, you already know what happens next, because you decided it weeks ago, not in this exact moment. That's the only difference that ever really mattered.